Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today I am going to share with you an astrological insight that came up naturally while I was teaching a class recently about the movie Shawshank Redemption. So this is kind of some new bonus content that I've been creating. You might have seen the first episode I did where I told you about an experience I had at the gym listening to a song by System of a Down, and then all of these very interesting astrological insights that were connected to the moment I sort of discovered the song. Well, this is in a similar vein. I'm going to share with you a random connection that I made that proved to be really meaningful and interesting astrologically to the movie Shawshank Redemption. So, if you've never seen the movie, there will be some spoilers. I'll be talking about the movie in ways that kind of assume most people have seen it by now because it's kind of an old school classic. But if you haven't and you want to watch it, plug your ears or come back after you've seen the movie, maybe. Either way, I've been excited to create this new kind of content where what I'm trying to do is present to you the ways in which I move about the world and make astrological connections very organically. I think this is a really important part of how we all learn astrology, but it's hard to represent these kinds of moments. So the purpose of this special Sky Speak series is to give you those natural, organic astrological connections that just come across my path as a teacher and practitioner. And hopefully they're interesting to you and also make really fun connections to things like movies and music and other things that are just naturally coming across our paths. So anyway, that's our goal for today, a little weekend bonus content. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel to grow. Spread the word if you like this kind of content. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. Bonus content weekend means no promotions for the day. So on that note, let me get into this. Here's how the situation came up. And then I'll talk about Shawshank Redemption. I'm going to show you a few clips from the Shawshank Redemption film and then make some astrological connections, show you a bunch of charts that correspond to people who are in the film. The writer Stephen King, who wrote the story the movie is based upon, some of the actors, Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, the publication date of the book, the publication of, or the release date of the movie, all actually bearing very similar astrological signatures. But first, how did this come up? So like everything, when an astrological moment happens for me, my hairs kind of stand on end. I realize something that's crossing my path is corresponding to an astrological configuration in the sky, or I might be teaching something, trying to teach a concept, for example, in one of my classes, which is what happened in this case, and something naturally pops into my head. I trust that now because when images or metaphors or films or experiences or memories or stories pop into my head as I'm trying to teach an astrological concept, it's usually because there's archetypal resonance. So in this case, I was teaching a class and we were talking about the similarities and differences between the sign of Pisces and the sign of Libra. Now, I had a student who came on during a Q&A and said, gosh, it's interesting to me that Venus rules Libra and is also exalted in the sign of Pisces. This is part of the ancient language of planetary dignities. She said, I am feeling like there's something about these two signs that feels similar, but also really different. Could you draw out the differences for me and maybe similarities between Venus in Libra and Venus in Pisces, two, again, places of Venus's traditional rulership and exaltation? And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. And first and foremost, I said, I want to make sure that we talk about the fact that there's actually an astronomical reason for their connectivity that you might be sensing as well. So I'm going to show you what that is. Did you know that the signs of Libra and Pisces traditionally shared a relationship through what is called Antiscia? Let me just show you what Antiscia looks like on a chart, and then I'll sort of explain the concept, and then we'll deepen this conversation. So let me put a chart up on the screen. I'm going to show you what Antiscia looks like. If you've never heard of this concept, it is basically, I'm going to eliminate everything from the chart view for just a second here. Basically, it's the idea that certain signs share affinities based on similar astronomical features in the solar year. Obviously, this is relative to the northern hemisphere. But for example, if we take the starting point of 0 Capricorn, which is the winter solstice, What we're saying is that degrees of signs equally distant from that winter solstice share something called Antiscia. So that means that signs on either side of the winter solstice, so that would be the sign of Capricorn and the sign of Sagittarius, are connected. Similarly, if we fan out two more signs, the signs of Scorpio and Aquarius are connected. And then if we fan out two more, the signs of Pisces and Libra are connected. Now, by what means are they connected? Well, we put it like this. In the early days of the sign of Capricorn, as the light is steadily rising, there's actually a very exact same amount of light in a 24-hour period as the very last days of Sagittarius. The difference is that the sun is setting versus the sun rising. If you go to the first degree of Sagittarius and the 29th degree of Capricorn, the two numbers adding up to 30 degrees total, that's always the formula. Those 2 days of the solar year are actually identical in terms of the amount of sun or light and dark in a 24-hour period. The difference is that at 1 degree of Sagittarius, the sun is going down versus at 29 degrees of Capricorn, the sun is going up. So Antiscia are formed between signs that basically share a similar amount of light in a 24-hour period. The difference is typically that one part of the solar year, the sun's going down, the other one, it's going up. So this means that in the sign of Libra and Pisces, there is an affinity between the two signs that's rooted in the quality of light. Now, let me show you on an astronomy software program what this looks like, because it can be a little abstract to understand. But once we understand this, we can understand why there are some similarities between Venus's placement and the meanings of the sign of Libra and Pisces. So let me show you now on an astronomy program. So this is an astronomy program that I use all the time called Starry Night Pro. And I've artificially made it dark in this program. So the sun's out, but it's dark. It looks weird, but this way you can see the zodiac better and all of the constellations and things like that. So this is right around the fall equinox. And what's happening at the time of the fall equinox is the sun is on its downward path, crossing this red line, which is the celestial equator. That line is essentially exactly halfway between the sun's highest point and lowest point, or the winter or summer and winter solstices. So when the sun is up at that top pink line you're seeing, that would be the summer solstice. When it's down at the bottom line, that would be the winter solstice. When it's crossing the middle, it's an equinox. When it's crossing the middle going downward, it's the fall equinox, because we're heading into the underworld of the solar year. Everything below that line as the sun sets down to the winter solstice means there's more darkness than light in a 24-hour period. And as the sun goes back up from the winter solstice to the spring equinox, we're still in the dark half of the year, but now light is rising from within it. So Libra takes us into the basement, or the underworld of the solar year. Now, what I want you to recognize is, watch what happens when I just take the sun one day at a time, exact same time of day, but just one day at a time. See how the sun starts going into the bottom part of the solar year? It's down below that line. This is our fall and winter zodiacally in the northern hemisphere. Now, in these early days of the fall equinox, or the Libra period, the light is basically going through this little portion of the sky. Now, I'm going to take you forward, and we're going to go all the way down to winter solstice. I'm going to keep chugging along here, and the sun gets all the way down as low as it will go, and then it starts turning. That's the double-bodied Sagittarius turning the sun upward, and then it starts rising up through the winter solstice in Capricorn, and then it comes up through Aquarius. This is the middle of Aquarius right now, rising up through the middle. And then when we get to about February 20th, 21st, right in there, what I want you to notice is, see how the sun is back into the Libra portion? It's back into the same portion the sun was in when it was sinking down through Libra, but it's rising up through Pisces. That's Antiscia. So what we're saying here is essentially that the portion of the sky that the sun is moving through when it's going up through Pisces toward the spring equinox is the same portion of the sky that it's going down through from Libra onward. That secret sameness gives the two signs an affinity because they share in the sameness of light and dark quality in the sky. The difference is that Libra is taking us down, Pisces is taking us up. And that has metaphorical significance that's really, really special and connected to the film Shawshank Redemption. So now that we've made that magical little connection, first of all, let me go back to how this came up in class. So the way that this came up in class is super interesting. Hold on just one second. Let me close a few things. So first of all, the student was saying, hey, isn't it interesting that Venus has a rulership in both signs? What I'm trying to understand is why. Now, there are a lot of reasons why, and the construction of the zodiac in ancient times and the rulerships of the planets are rooted in the metaphors of light and dark that constitute the great solar year. So there's a significant set of reasons behind the placement, for example, of Venus and Saturn as the co-rulers of Libra that have to do with the fall equinox and the entrance into the underworld. Let's try to explain Libra briefly, and then we'll try to explain Pisces briefly in terms of the relation between their rulers. So when we're entering the metaphorical underworld, starting from the sign of Cancer and moving progressively toward Libra, we're talking about the descent of light from the highest point in the sky down toward the fall equinox when we enter the dark half of the year. For ancient astrologers, that summer solstice sign of Cancer was called the gateway of mankind, and it was associated with the sun descending down toward the earth. And that was thought in turn as the spirit descending into the material world as a kind of astronomical metaphor. And so everything from the summer solstice down is thought of as the descent of light into the world, or spirit into form and matter. Therefore, when we get to the Libra ruled sign, where there is now a balance of light and dark, we're talking in a sense about the embodied material world and the soul descending into it. The picture of the spirit soul descending into matter is an interesting one to be placed at the threshold of Libra, because there is a sense of this world, this material world, being governed by laws. And those laws are beautiful, good, just, and true. And they are, broadly speaking, the laws of karma. So when we enter this material world, the balance of light and dark is constantly being weighed. Our choices are being evaluated. We have moral obligations, and there is a process of learning that takes place for souls in material forms as we work our way through the world and all of the different facets of the world. Now, on an ideal level, on the kind of cosmic level of divine architecture, karma is perfect, good, just, true, balanced, fair, wise. But the problem is that we have only small ability to see the workings of cosmic law. We get some sense of it. But in this world, the problem that we run into is that the letter of the law, or the resemblance of cosmic law in man-made systems of law, often fall tragically short of the ideal. So we deal all of the time with feelings of injustice and unfairness, and bad people seem to get rewarded and good people seem to be punished. And the sign of Libra has so much to do with the reconciliation of some sense of the cosmic ideal laws of the universe that give rise to the shape and form of a cosmos in which we're living, and that we can somehow trust and rely upon. Yeah, this place is good, true, beautiful, wise, just. There is a karmic process that is guiding all things. And Libra really presents us with those ideals. And insofar as those ideals have come into the world in good ways, we have court systems that work. We have legal processes that work. We have establishment of rights in human relations. These are your God-given rights as a person, as a being. You have freedoms, you have liberties, etc., right? So Libra is a sign that presents us with the sort of ideal way that things should work and create harmony, balance, fairness, goodness, beauty, truth, justice in the world, in the material world that the spirit has descended into. That's its ideal. A great Libran tension is, yeah, but does my experience actually add up to that? Like, does the world actually reflect that? And quite frequently, no. One of the classic Libran dilemmas is idealism, right? Sometimes, for example, there's a classic thing that happens to Librans in love where they may struggle in relationships and then long for people or situations that are unavailable to them. And this is almost always about the ideal versus the real. The ideal love, the ideal situation, the ideal way that one should act, behave, or the ideal social calculus in any given situation. And then the unavoidable fact that humans are messy, that life is messy, and that there's constant deviations from ideal standards of beauty or human conduct or morality, or the social calculus is not always working in this smooth, pristine, ideal manner. And so people, Libran psychology, in a sense, people with strong Libran traits or characteristics are often having to reconcile themselves to the mysterious ways that karma works that seem to deviate from what is ideal. Well, this doesn't feel like the way it ought to be or it should go or something like that. And sometimes there can be also this very beautiful kind of dark aesthetic with Librans, right? Where it's like I've noticed for many years that many Libran people I know and love and been friends with or whatever, they love black and white photography. Like, why is that such a Libran thing? Not that every Libra likes black and white photography, but I've seen it enough to be like, oh, it's a thing. Well, one of the things that black and white photography does is it presents us with the way in which this fallen world is sort of perfect and beautiful and yet sort of melancholic. There's something depressing and heavy and sad about the world insofar as it falls short. And yet, if we can see that as beautiful, then there's something perfect in the mess of life. And the sort of refined beauty of black and white photography seems to capture that, which I find to be at the heart of what Librans are often able to, like, Librans can touch that somehow. This world is perfect, even though it just falls so miserably short. It's so depressing that it can't be as ideal as it ought to be or should be. But sometimes that's paralyzing. For a Libra, it's like, well, I can't make a decision because it feels like there's no way to get to the ideal. And I feel like I can't let go of the judgments or, the perfectionism. Liz Green famously said that Libra might be the most perfectionistic sign of the zodiac. That's interesting. Okay, so anyway, that's a bit about Libra. But Venus here, the point about Venus being here is that, like, think about the word cosmos and the word cosmetic. They share etymological roots. The cosmos, as Venusian for ancient mystics, meant that it was a well-arranged, beautiful whole, like a well-arranged display of makeup, on a woman's face. Like, it's just so beautiful, nicely arranged, nice. So the universe is thought to be not just like a logos, like a reason or an order mechanically, but also aesthetically, that there's something beautiful and harmonious and flowing that you can appreciate about reality that's also intelligible, that's also rational on some level. So Venus in this sign, paired with Saturn, who's exalted here, suggests that this world, even though it's limited by death, by impermanence, even though it falls short, that there is a beauty in it somehow. And this is at the heart of why Librans, that picture of the hall of Mot in the Egyptian underworld, the hearts being weighed against a feather. Well, the heart's always heavier than a feather. It can't not be by the laws of physics. So what is this? What are the laws of spirit, and how do they sometimes differ from the laws of matter? That's also at the core of the pairing of Venus and Saturn in this sign. That again, it's so central to the sign, is like what is law? What is order? What is beauty in a world that also seems to fall short of the ideal? That means that we have to find some different sense of law and order. There's something that there's some other way of knowing beauty, order, law, intelligibility, structure that isn't so mechanistic and confining. This is, again, all stuff that's at the heart of the pairing of Venus and Saturn in Libra. Okay, so now Pisces, totally different sign, but remember, it shares a very similar quality of light with Libra. The difference is that where in Libra, the light is descending down, which talks about life, beauty in the material world within the realm of Saturn. But what's happening in Pisces is the sun is going through the same space of Libra, but lifting up and out of the celestial equator's lower region, which, again, as an astronomical metaphor, is about transcending the world, is about lifting or rising out of it. And so that very question of the lightness of spirit and how do you find some transcendent understanding of cosmic law within the confines of the material universe is a kind of Libra Pisces dynamic that's actually at the core of what we struggle with in Libra, as I was just describing. And one way of thinking about that struggle is to think of the affinity with the sign of Pisces that shares that light quality, but Pisces lifting out, a Jupiter ruled sign, right? A sign of expansion, a sign wherein Venus is exalted, coming across the threshold into the light half of the year. She's reaching up and into the transcendent realm of bliss, pleasure, happiness, salvation, redemption, hope, and longing that take us out of this world. And that's really the impulse behind the sign of Pisces. But notice how the same exact searching for beauty, for pleasure, for happiness, for a sense that there is there's something redeeming about the world. Libra is very much more about the, being within the world and what gives rise to order, harmony, beauty, justice, truth within the world. Pisces has much more of an interest in how to transcend it or how to move out of it. And both are valid archetypal impulses that don't have to cancel each other out. In fact, they share a secret sameness. That's the affinity of Antiscia. So how do we access transcendence while in the world? How do we be, the classic phrase is, in the world, but not of it? This is a kind of Libra Pisces dynamic. They're built into one another because if in the sign of Pisces, for example, we chase that sense of redemptive, uplifting, otherworldly hope and salvation, but we do it at the cost of something that acknowledges and honors the limitations of the world, then we'll have poor substitutes. We'll have alcohol, we'll have sex addiction, or, it's like whatever the thing is that we use to try to escape this world, there will be karmic consequences because we can't not be in the world. We can't bypass it. There are karmic laws at work that require that we be here and that we understand how to be a citizen of the cosmos, that we're a part of its arrangement, that we're a part of its laws. So the transcendence in the sign of Pisces that doesn't acknowledge the sort of law and order of being alive and embodied can be equally problematic. And so, not surprisingly, a lot of Piscean karma has to do with having to face very real practical limitations and consequences that ideally inform how we seek pleasure, bliss, happiness, transcendence. It refines and shapes and develops our sense of faith, hope, and happiness. So you see how the two signs work together and they have this affinity. Okay, so I was explaining this in class. This is the setup, right? You need that. That's the setup. And now, as I was explaining this, and I was thinking, how can I draw this out a little bit more? Because examples really, really help. And all of a sudden, just like that, the movie Shawshank Redemption popped into my head. And I don't know why, but this is why I love astrology, because if you spend enough time speaking the language of astrology, talking to people through the language of astrology, listening astrologically, watching films, taking in music from an astrological perspective, you start developing this neural network that I believe the Oracle or Hermes will somehow just access and light up as a way of conveying something of importance. So I trust at this point, and I can always tell when it's happening, when something that matches, in this case, what I'm teaching pops into my head, that there is a reason for it. It's not just, I'm not just making shit up. I mean, on a certain level, there's nothing wrong with making creative connections, that they don't have to be 100% objective. They can be creative, right? But my point is that I knew as soon as I brought it up, that there were probably baked into the release date of Shawshank Redemption, the people in Shawshank Redemption, the writer Stephen King, that the Libra Pisces axis would be highlighted. So anyway, what happened was this movie popped into my head. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this movie in case you've never seen it. And then I'm going to show you a few scenes from it. I'm going to explain how they actually illustrate the Pisces-Libra dynamic really beautifully. And by the way, there are many other astrological connections you could make with this film or the actors, or there's other ways of talking about Libra and Pisces. But this is a great example of astrology at work. So the movie was based on a novella written by Stephen King that was published in 1982 called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Then it was released as a movie in 1994, starring Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. And it features a man who is wrongly imprisoned for the murder of his wife. He's framed, set up, goes to prison, didn't actually do it, and has to spend a very long time in prison dealing with the fact that he really shouldn't be there, that the legal system failed. And as he is there, his longing for freedom and redemption play a really amazing and interesting role in the story and the eventual ending of the story. Now, this is the spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, where he makes an escape. And it is just a beautiful movie. So anyway, it doesn't really work to do this without the spoiler, so I do apologize. But anyway, it was nominated for 7 Oscars. It didn't win any. That year, Forrest Gump ended up winning all of them, I think. But I think Morgan Freeman was nominated for Best Supporting Actor or something like that, or Best Actor. I don't remember. But either way, this movie popped into my head, and I thought, oh yeah, this is, and here's why. The movie is all about the way in which the ideal system of justice has fallen apart and is corrupt in this world, and so deeply disappointing for the main character. He's gone to prison he's been falsely accused. He doesn't belong in prison, and yet he's in prison. And so the movie has so much to do with the failures and shortcomings of the world. And why is this happening? This does not feel fair. Karmically, what is going on here? And throughout the film, one of the things that's really interesting is the main character, Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins, has this way of gradually reforming the prison to make it a better place. It's more equitable, that does more things like for rehabilitation of the inmates. And so there's a lot going on in this movie that has to do with fairness and justice as a system lacking, falling apart, and an emphasis on reform and making the prison system a better place through careful revision of its structure and form. And that's like one level of the movie. The other level of the movie is about the seeking for transcendence of this world altogether, of themes like forgiveness and redemption and salvation and freedom and liberation from all constraints whatsoever. And those two tensions are present throughout the whole movie, because one of the ways that he tries to cope with being in an unjust situation is to make it more equitable and just while he's there. Very Libran. On the other hand, what's building within him the whole time, the whole movie, is this feeling of, I have to get out of here. I have to get out of this entire situation. And not only do I deserve to get out of it, but every person here, even though a lot of them deserved to be here, a lot of them did commit crimes, they also deserve justice in some larger sense. They deserve salvation, redemption, forgiveness, compassion, hope, beauty. And so these two things pull on each other like Libra and Pisces, and that secret affinity that they share. So what I want to show you now are a few clips from the movie that nicely illustrate some of these themes. Now, I'm going to show you, first and foremost, I am going to show you a scene that nicely illustrates Andy Dufresne attempting to make the prison a better place, but also trying to do so. He's trying to gradually become a reformer of the prison. So here's a scene that I really love.
Ran off years ago. Figured him for dead anyway. So anyway, this lawyer fella says to me, your brother died a rich man. Oil wells and shit. Close to $1 million.
$1 million?
Yeah. Fucking incredible how lucky some assholes get.
Jeez Louise, you gonna see any of that?
35,000. That's what he left me.
Dollars?
Yep.
Holy shit, that's great. That's like winning the sweepstakes. Isn't it?
Dumb shit. What do you think the government's gonna do to me? Take a big wet bite out of my ass is what?
Poor Barry. Terrible fucking luck, huh?
Crying shame. Some people really got it awful. Andy, you nuts. Keep your eyes on your mouth, man. Andy.
So I want to comment on this really briefly. One of the things that I love about this is right away, you can see that here's truly like one of the most asshole characters in the film, who's this like prison guard. And he is reflecting on the fact that that he feels like in inheriting some money, that he feels like a victim of a larger, unjust, corrupt system that's going to take a lot of his money. The government's just going to take a big bite out of it, the taxes and so forth. And so here's someone who's in charge of all of these inmates who feels like they are similarly being objectified and treated poorly by a system. And Andy Dufresne very intelligently sees the connection between his condition and the prisoner's condition and this this warden's condition, or this guard's condition. So watch this.
All right, you're gonna pay some taxes, but you'll still end up with
Yeah. Maybe enough to buy a new car, and then what? I gotta pay tax on the car. Repair, maintenance, goddamn kids pestering you to take them for a ride all the time. Then at the end of the year, you figure the tax wrong, you gotta pay them out of your own pocket. I tell you, Uncle Sam, he puts his hand in your shirt and squeezes your tit till it's purple. The man never gets a break. That's the thing. You said rich getting yourself killed.
Keep talking. No.
Some brother. Shit.
Hey!
Mr. Hadley, do you trust your wife?
Oh, that's funny. You're gonna look funnier sucking my dick with no teeth.
What I mean is, do you think she'd go behind your back, try to hamstring you?
That's it. Step aside, Mert. This fucker's having himself an accident.
You don't push him off the roof. Because if you do trust her, there's no reason you can't keep that 35,000.
What did you say?
35,000.
35,000.
All of it.
All of it?
Every penny.
You better start making sense.
If you want to keep all that money, give it to your wife. The IRS allows a one-time only gift to your spouse for up to $60,000.
Bullshit. Tax-free?
Tax-free. IRS can't touch 1 cent.
You're that smart banker what killed his wife, aren't you? Why should I believe a smart banker like you? So I can end up in here with you?
It's perfectly legal. Go ask the IRS. They'll say the same thing. Actually, I feel stupid telling you this. I'm sure you would have investigated the matter yourself.
Yeah, fucking A. I don't need no smart wife-killing banker to tell me where the bear's shit in the buckwheat.
Of course not. But you do need someone to set up the tax-free gift for you. And that'll cost you. A lawyer, for example.
Bunch of ball-washing bastards.
Right. I suppose I could set it up for you. That would save you some money. You get the forms, I'll prepare them for you. Nearly free of charge. I'd only ask 3 beers apiece for each of my co-workers.
Co-workers, get him. That's rich, ain't it?
I think a man working outdoors feels more like a man if you can have a bottle of suds. It's only my opinion. Sir.
What are you Jimmy staring at? Back to work.
Let's go, work.
And that's how it came to pass that on the second to last day of the job, the convict crew that tarred the plate factory roof in the spring of '49 wound up sitting in a row at 10 o'clock in the morning, drinking icy cold Bohemia-style beer, courtesy of the hardest screw that ever walked a turn at Shawshank State Prison.
Drink up while it's cold, ladies.
Great scene, classic scene. I just, if you've seen this movie before, like anytime it ever comes on TV, I just have to watch it. I can't leave the room. But okay, so a few things about this. Again, here we have this very Libran and Piscean dynamic. On the one hand, we have these a man who's been falsely imprisoned, and all of these prisoners working under the sun with very little forgiveness or compassion You know, it's very punitive. And that's how the material world can feel sometimes. Does it feel like a fair, just place? You know, remember, Saturn's exalted in the sign of Libra. This world is something that has karmic laws built into it. It's beautiful, it's just, it's good, it's true. But that does not mean that we experience it that way. And the sign of Libra has so much to do with reconciling ourselves to that split that we feel, fair, unfair. Now, here's the jerkiest, most punitive of the guards, feeling like he's in an unfair situation with the government and taxes and money and lawyers who will take advantage of the money he has. And he, you know, he's kind of a blue collar guy that feels like he's struggling at the hands of a force that's bigger than himself. Same exact dynamic, but in a different context. Andy Dufresne sees that as an opportunity. Oh, I can help him because I know the laws. I can manipulate the laws and help him around them. And what I ask for in exchange is an acknowledgement of our humanity. Just let us have a beer. Let us enjoy a beer. Is there anything more Piscean? You know, let us feel like we're free for just a few minutes under the sun, drinking some beer. So you see how that sense of redemption and hope and salvation and forgiveness is achieved because he's able to help someone manipulate the law. Or there's an interaction between the law and something that transcends the law. That's so much at the heart of the entire Shawshank Redemption as a movie. Now, I've got another scene that I want to show you. And this is, I think, another really good one that illustrates a similar dynamic. This is a scene where Morgan Freeman is up for parole. And he's been in prison since he was a young man. And so this is a really powerful scene about forgiveness and about the punitive nature of the law.
Please sit down. Ellis Boyd Redding, your files say you've served 40 years of a life sentence. You feel you've been rehabilitated?
Rehabilitated? Well, now let me see. You know, I don't have any idea what that means.
Well, it means you're ready to rejoin society.
I know what you think it means, Sonny. To me, it's just a made-up word. A politician's word, so that young fellas like yourself can wear a suit and a tie and have a job. What do you really want to know? Am I sorry for what I did?
Well, are you?
There's not a day goes by I don't feel regret. Not because I'm in here, because you think I should. I look back on the way I was then. A young, stupid kid who committed that terrible crime. I want to talk to him. I want to try to talk some sense to him. Tell him the way things are. But I can't. That kid's long gone, and this old man is all that's left. I gotta live with that. Rehabilitated. It's just a bullshit word. So you go on and stamp your form, Sonny, and stop wasting my time. Because to tell you the truth, I don't give a shit.
Wow, such a powerful scene. That is easily one of my favorite scenes in like cinematic history of my life anyway. You know, the films that I've seen and loved, like that is one of my favorite scenes of all time. And it is so Libra Pisces. the dynamic. Now, I want to make it clear, there are many ways to explore archetypes. There are other signs, there are other planets, combinations that you could use. There's a lot in this film, for example, that to me speaks to the planet Neptune or the planet Uranus, right? Freedom or redemption or hope or salvation can be talked about not just through one lens. So when things like this come up, there are good, valid archetypal reasons for it, but not just one reason. I want to make that clear. But here's the Libra and Pisces connection there. Do you feel rehabilitated? In that moment, he really speaks to Libra, you could say, from the space of Pisces. Rehabilitated? Not in your worldly conventional sense of it, because I think that system is broken and it falls short, and its logic and its forms of measurement are not real to me. I can't lie about that. His heart just gets lighter than the feather. His heart, his heart is not Saturnian. He's basically saying, if you want to weigh and judge me there according to your standards of the world, there's no way my heart will ever not be heavier than a feather, because that's that world, and that's your tie, and that's your suit, and that's your job, and that's this prison, and that's why I've been here ages, filing away more regret than I ever could possibly have deserved. you know, rehabilitation, that's bullshit. So he's speaking to that core frustration in the world of Libra. Am I really supposed to think this world is good, beautiful, just, true, balanced, well-designed, and organized when I've been in here suffering well beyond any accurate form of measurement in my spirit soul? No, right? Do I regret? Yes. But like, this system is broken, and I am seeking my redemption lies in me, right? And that's what he's saying there. I don't care anymore. I'm free inside. I'm free from your system of evaluation and judgment. So you can feel the Pisces lifting up through the same space, that flowering Jupiter, Venus, and Pisces saying, I don't belong to that system. I'm somehow above it or beyond it. And yet there he is in the prison, in the system, claiming that freedom. And that's the beautiful, like, synergy of these two things. They're actually something about this material universe, and the existence of our experiences of unfairness are part of how we access a sense of freedom, liberation, hope, eternality, that paradoxically is being fostered and enabled. It grows up and through the concrete of the Saturnian world. That's hard. That's why suffering is a part of the exploration of all of these beautiful mystical systems. Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, mystical Christianity, etc. So let's speak now to some of the redemptive themes that really start to shift the film. There's a lot that he does to rehabilitate. He makes a library in the prison, and he starts doing the taxes for all the guards. Andy Dufresne does, and in the meantime, there's this parallel theme of, I need to transcend this place. Because no matter how nice I make it, there's still something in me that seeks a greater freedom. So this is another classic scene from the movie, in which he's in the warden's office by himself for a brief moment and decides to play Mozart over the loudspeakers for all of the inmates.
Andy, do you hear that?
let me out. Andy? Andy?
I have no idea to this day what those two Italian ladies were singing about. Truth is, I don't want to know. Some things are best left unsaid. I like to think they were singing about something so beautiful it can't be expressed in words, and makes your heart ache because of it. I tell you, those voices soared, higher and farther than anybody in a gray place dares to dream. It was like some beautiful bird flapped into our drab little cage and made those walls dissolve away. And for the briefest of moments, every last man at Shawshank felt free.
Another unforgettable scene from an unforgettable movie. They end up breaking into the room and he goes into solitary confinement as a punishment. And when he gets out, he says, "Easiest time I ever did." Every man in Shawshank felt free. Every man felt as though just for a few minutes, those walls disappeared. That's the Pisces lifting out of the confines of the material world. And in contrast to the Libran organization of the world, which is very important. Like, would we not want a legal system? Would we not want courts? Just because they fall short doesn't mean that they shouldn't exist. And yet they do fall short, and they will. And there's something about the human spirit that has to exist above and beyond the rules and logic of this material world, even though it needs arrangement. So these two things have to live together. That's the Antiscia are said to be places of secret sameness. They look different, but they're sort of the same. So Libra, Pisces again. And then finally, I'm going to show you one last scene that is classic. And it's really starting to get at the core of Andy's inability to stay stuck in this prison. He's been making the most of it. He's been a reformer within it. He's been doing good things and finding meaning and purpose within the confines. There's something very noble about that. But the longing still exists. All right. Here is maybe one of the most famous scenes in the film.
You think you'll ever get out of here? Me? Yeah. One day, when I got a long white beard and 2 or 3 marbles rolling around upstairs, they let me out. I'll tell you where I'd go. Zihuatanejo. What? Zihuatanejo. It's in Mexico. A little place on the Pacific Ocean. You know what the Mexicans say about the Pacific? They say it has no memory. That's where I want to live the rest of my life. A warm place with no memory. Open up a little hotel right on the beach. Buy some worthless old boat and fix it up new. Take my guests out. Charter fishing. Zihuatanejo. In a place like that, I could use a man that knows how to get things. I don't think I could make it on the outside, Andy. I've been in here most of my life. I'm an institutional man now. It's like Brooks was. Wow, you underestimate yourself. I don't think so. In here, I'm the guy who can get things for you, sure, but outside, all you need is the yellow pages. Hell, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Pacific Ocean? Shit. About to scare me to death, something that big. Not me. I didn't shoot my wife and I didn't shoot her lover.
Whatever mistakes I made, I paid for them and then some. That hotel, that boat, I don't think that's too much to ask.
I don't think you ought to be doing this to yourself, Andy. This is just shitty pipe dreams. I mean, Mexico is way the hell down there, and you're in here, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, right. That's the way it is. It's down there and I'm in here. I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living, or get busy dying.
Woo, that one hits. A really important turning point in the film, honestly, that starts bringing us to the themes of redemption, salvation, escape. And what I love about that scene is, again, the juxtaposition between, hey, look, you know what? This world's messed up. The best thing to do is just figure out a way to cope and exist within this effed up situation. And Andy pushes back and he says, whatever I did to deserve this situation, I've paid for and then some. And I don't think it's too much to ask to be near the ocean. I don't think it's too much to ask to have a little happiness. I don't think it's too much to ask to have a little freedom. And that's important. It's really important because that seeking of spiritual release and freedom that says, no, I'm not just going to be confined to this world and thinking that if I just play it safe within the rules of this world, which are clearly it's not enough. That would be like saying, if I do it the exact same way according to the rules, and then somehow my heart will magically become lighter than a feather, and it doesn't work that way. You can't create the lightness of the heart without finding a path of transcendence. And that's this interesting exchange between Libra and Pisces. So now let me show you how this is astrological. Remember, I said that this popped up to me as a way of trying to explain for a student who was wanting to see more of the connections between Libra and Pisces. So I first showed the Antiscia, tried to explain it archetypally, but then this movie popped into my head. And when that happens, I usually know that it is for a reason. So here is the first piece of astrological synchronicity that I'm very excited to now share with you. So what I did live in class, just to illustrate how Hermes actually works, is I said I would bet money that on the day that Shawshank Redemption was released, that something of the Libra Pisces connection was present, and that Antiscia. Because when something like that pops into my awareness, I have learned to trust over time that there is a meaningful correlation that's appearing in my psyche. So here it is. On October 14th of 1994, on the day that Shawshank Redemption was released, and by the way, I want to point this out. I'm going to actually animate this chart. In the evening of that day, as it would have been sweeping the theater, the moon moved into Pisces to move into a conjunction with Saturn on the weekend of its release, and the sun was moving into Antiscia with Saturn from Libra. There it is, right? So I did not know that, right? So as I'm doing this live, I said, let's take a look at the release date, because I'd be willing to bet the connection that I just made between Libra and Pisces to this film was actually there somehow in the film. So sure enough, on its release date, the sun in Libra in its fall was moving into, within days, the Antiscia with Saturn and Pisces. So in other words, we had two planets connecting through that pathway. The sun and Saturn make perfect sense too. The light of spirit, of the sun, the confines of the material world, and Saturn, beautiful. I think it's also interesting to note that Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn were co-present. Such a good union of planets for a movie like Shawshank. So it's not the only way of looking at it, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. This is it. No, but is it surprising to me that this connection and this through this film came up, and then on its release date, that exact connection was there, unbeknownst to me? No, because that's astrology. That's astrology. All right, let me show you a few other really cool connections. Here is the release date of Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, coming through a novella that Stephen King wrote that was published in 1982. On the day that it was released, I'm going to animate this again. Within hours of its release, Mercury entered the sign of Libra, which is a Mercury return for Stephen King, who wrote this movie and has 3 planets in Libra, and Saturn and Pluto were coming to conjoin one another in Libra. I find it completely fascinating that the sun on the release date is basically conjoined to the position of Pluto at the time that the book was written. These are little things that I don't like to make mountains out of molehills, but they are little reflections and echoes. So on that day that Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption was released, Mercury moved into Libra. Saturn and Pluto were conjoining in the sign of Libra. And the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Libra speaks so loud in terms of a symbol that corresponds to the potential darkness and shadows of something like the justice system, the criminal system, the prison system. Moon was moving into a conjunction with Neptune that evening, another fun symbol to play with respect to the themes of redemption or salvation from imprisonment. The sun was square to Uranus, themes of escape and liberation. So there's lots of fun ways to play with this, but the Libran themes are very powerful here. Let me show you another one. So this is the chart of Stephen King, who wrote the novella that the film is based on. So when you look at his chart, what I want you to notice is 3 planets, Venus, Neptune, and Mercury, all in the sign of Libra. This is someone who cares a great deal about the Libran world, and who in many of his books plays on themes of cosmic justice and injustice. Big theme for him. So anyway, just little fun connections to Libra that are very present and loud. Or Libra Pisces. Let me show you another one. This is here we go. This is Tim Robbins, who plays Andy Dufresne. His birth chart, all of these are like rectified or noon charts, stuff like that. So it's just the position of the planets, not the houses. But Tim Robbins' chart features Venus, North Node, and Sun all in Libra. And basically, the film came out 2 days prior to his solar return on his birthday. He was born just days after a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So very powerful. That the Libran themes are so strongly echoed in his chart. And another thing that I find completely fascinating is Morgan Freeman's chart. Let me pull this one up. Sorry. So here's Morgan Freeman's chart. And in Morgan Freeman's chart, you can see that when he was born, the moon was in the sign of Pisces. This is a noon chart, but his moon would have been right around the realm of the position of Saturn in Pisces at the time of the film's release. He was nominated for an award, which is fascinating. But here's someone with the moon in the sign of Pisces playing a role in a film that has that strong Piscean theme. And his moon and Saturn would have been right next to each other at the time that the film was released. Then you can go to, these are all just like, I think the release date is the most like, whoa. But let's go to Bob Gunton, who plays the warden. I don't think you saw him in any of the clips I gave, but he's an unforgettable character. Jupiter and Neptune in Libra, and the sun would have been pretty close to that Jupiter at the time of the film's release. That's just, just remarkable little symbols to me that are really interesting. Like the amount of strong Libran placements around the same place. Another one is, let's see here. We've got Frank Darabont, who is the director of the film. And I'm going to show you his chart. All extra digging. He was born, again, there's no birth time, but looks like there's a strong likelihood that he would have been born with the moon in Libra and the North Node also in Libra. So falling under an eclipse cycle in the sign of Libra that was the correspondent to what was a Tim Robbins chart that had the same thing. So again, like strong emphasis on the sign of Libra in the director's chart. And then finally, let's see here. I think that it. Yeah, that's all of them. So to me, like, again, the magic of the film can be thought about from a variety of different archetypal perspectives. There's not just one. There are many. But in a moment of teaching, when someone says, hey, could you help me understand the Libra-Pisces dynamic? And you explain it archetypally, it only goes so far to explain it philosophically. All of a sudden, it helps for a story to just pop into your head. But what I've found is when such stories pop into your heads, track the astrological symbolism, because there's a good chance that that symbolism is present somehow in some of the quote unquote objective mappings of the story, the film, the person, the actor, the historical figure that comes to your mind, or even a story from your own life. There might have been similar placements present when you experience something that comes to mind. To me, tracking this kind of stuff is the point and the purpose of this bonus series. It's to react to things, it's to share in films or music or things that I love and I'm sure other people love as well, and to make meaningful, magical, synchronistic connections that to me are really at the heart of how we actually learn astrology. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it might inspire you to revisit the movie or see it for the first time if you've never seen it. I know there were some spoilers. Trust me, there's pieces of the film that will still blow you away that I didn't talk about. So I didn't spoil everything. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're having a good one, and that this new bonus content will be, a kind of new way of learning. So anyway, that's it. Hope you're having a good one. Take it easy. Bye.